That moment when you realize that you just messed up, I had it many times over, especially when doing a product launch. So when you're trying to put months and months of work in just a couple of days during a big product launch for your whatever your new product is, what could possibly go wrong? Well, a lot. I can tell you that from experience. My name is Wilco the Kreij, and over the last 3, 4, 5 years, I've done quite a few product launches. Some would say big product launches as well. And as awesome as a product launch could be, there's also obviously quite a few downsides, but like while setting it up, there's also a lot of things that could go wrong. And that's why in this video, I wanted to talk about various mistakes that are likely to happen, or maybe you had the experience yourself as well. One of the mistakes that people make is that they don't plan their launch enough. So in a product launch, so whenever you are doing a product launch, you're trying to have a new product out in the open, there's a lot of work that needs to happen beforehand. You need to create copy, you need to design your sales pages, create your sales pages, have maybe affiliates involved. Like, there's a lot of work that needs to happen, and oftentimes people don't plan enough. They think, oh, creating a sales page, that's like 2 days of work, and all of a sudden it takes them a week, and like things go on, and like after a while they're just not going to meet their deadline. So not planning well enough in advance is definitely one of the most common issues. Number 2, and that's sort of in line with that, is announcing your launch date too soon. I've actually experienced this myself as well, where I made a certain launch date public and I wasn't able to meet the deadline, and it was not nice. And not only for that reason, but also if you are announcing your launch too early and you're revealing everything it does and it can do, then there's a chance people will copy you before you even release it to the market. And that's really something I'm always afraid of as well. So whenever I do have a product launch, I try to keep all the details close to my chest for as long as possible, because I just know that if I would reveal everything 2 months in advance, then right away a lot of people would start copying me before it even goes to market, and that way I could actually create competitors before even my own product is even out there. And number 3, when you're setting up your product launch, a big mistake people are making as well is to ignore their key partners. So let's say you are doing a product launch and you are inviting people over to promote your product. In other words, affiliates, or maybe you're working with certain influencers, or maybe you're working with someone who has to deliver your product or provide customer service. Like, if you're not keeping all of them like in the loop on what you're planning on and what dates you're planning on, you're gonna make mistakes. And I had this myself as well, where I was planning a big product launch, and various of my biggest affiliates that I would just like, they would probably result in like 30% of the launch, 30 or 40%, those couple of affiliates, and they were all like, they weren't able to make it that week because there was a big event going on. And I made that mistake because I didn't include them in the conversation. So right away, make sure to start like gathering people around, like, are these dates okay with you before you even pick a date to go with. And number 4, and this is actually kind of embarrassing, is a mistake I've made multiple times actually, it's kind of odd and awkward, is that I didn't take overseas holidays into account. So I live in the Netherlands. A lot of our customers are from the United States, for example, and I didn't properly check what holidays there were. So I was planning a launch, and apparently there was some big US holiday, and I didn't have a clue, right? So, and that really hurt sales a lot. So always look for overseas holidays wherever you are selling most, to make sure that you're not running a special offer or a product launch while there is a big US or big Canadian or whatever your target audience is, a holiday overseas that you weren't aware of. And number 5, and that's more about the product side of things, is to not do a proper beta test. In other words, make sure that you have sold your product before. If, let's say, you have a brand new product and no one has ever seen it before, and you're going to do a massive launch, and you're going to get hopefully a lot of customers in the process, who's to say that there's no issues or like questions that a lot of people ask, or like you haven't learned anything yet, and then all of a sudden you get a ton of people using your product, using your service, using whatever you are offering, and that could cause problems. So that's why I always try to do a beta period. In other words, invite a small group of customers to test out your product, to see what kind of questions they have. Maybe you can train your support staff on that. Maybe you can improve some features. Maybe you'll need to explain things more clearly on your sales page. But it's really important to know all of that before your actual product launch. And number 6, and this is one I've unfortunately experienced quite a few times, is not preparing for the worst case scenario. Because when you're doing a product launch, once again, you are putting a lot of work in advance in all of this, right? But what happens if during your product launch, your server goes down, Amazon goes down, your email server goes down, your affiliate platform goes down, well, whatever it is, there's so many stuff that could go wrong, it's insane. So what you need to do is make sure you are preparing for the worst. Make sure you have your sales page on two different servers. Make sure to have two different email providers. Like, try to have a duplicate of everything to make sure you are prepared for the worst, that even if your server goes down, you can still do your product launch. And finally, another problem that is pretty common actually is to not have a good traffic strategy in place. I mean, if you're gonna put all your effort to create a new sales page, create a new offer, create a new product, do everything, but you don't know how you're gonna get new people into your product launch. I mean, after all, a product launch is only a launch if people get to see it, right? If people don't see it, it's just an empty page or a sales page, and it just sits there and does nothing, right? So you need to have a good traffic strategy in place, whether it is with affiliates or whether it is with viral marketing or whether it is with Facebook ads. You need to know in advance how you're going to drive your traffic, and ideally you need to know this in advance. So especially if you're doing a product launch for a couple of days, you have all your Facebook ads ready, you have all your emails ready, you have everything ready and planned out in advance. So make sure to have your traffic strategy ready in advance. So all in all, it's really about planning. Like, make sure you know everything well in advance. You've tested the product out. You know that all your key stakeholders like affiliates are available. You know there's not a big holiday going on. You've prepared for all the worst case scenarios, and obviously you have a plan to drive traffic into your product launch. And with that, I'm really hoping that you're going to use this and you're going to rock it out with your own product launch.